Welcome to Moving Forward, conversations on culture, identity, healing, and hope. I'm your host, Linda Anderson, and I created this podcast as a space for real, heartfelt conversations with people who are reflecting, evolving, and boldly stepping into what's next. This podcast was born out of my own journey through seasons of loss, transition, and transformation, and my belief that healing happens when we come together to share our stories. My hope is that these conversations will inspire you to pause, reflect, and find courage as you move forward in your own life. Today's guest is Tovi C. Scruggs, an internationally recognized educator, transformational coach, mindfulness practitioner, and advocate for belonging, whose work challenges us to rethink both leadership and personal growth. For nearly 3 decades, Tovi has helped individuals and organizations navigate change by focusing on a simple, profound question: who are you being? Her signature approach, moving from leadership doing to leadership being, invites us to look beyond titles, accomplishments, and responsibilities, and explore the deeper values, beliefs, and experiences that shape who we are and how we show up in the world. A former high school principal, co-founder of AXA's Equity Leaders Academy, certified integral coach, and certified Dare to Lead facilitator, trained by Brené Brown. Tovi has dedicated her career to helping people cultivate courage, connection, belonging, and transformation. Her work is deeply rooted in mindfulness and self-mastery. For nearly 30 years, she has maintained a daily meditation practice and participated in multiple week-long silent retreats, experiences that continue to inform her approach to healing, resilience, and leadership. Recognized by Mindful Magazine as one of the most powerful women leaders igniting the world with courage and wisdom, Tovi believes that meaningful change in our schools, organizations, and communities begins with transformation within ourselves. Today, we explore culture, identity, healing, hope, and the possibilities that emerge when we choose courage over fear, connection over division, and growth over certainty. Tovi, thank you so much for giving up your time, allowing me to interview you on this Moving Forward podcast.
Thank you so much, Linda. It has really been a pleasure to prepare for this conversation as I've just been reflecting on your introduction and what I have been up to. So it's really got me just thinking about some things.
Yeah. And that's why I said for giving up your time, because I really appreciate it. You are a busy person and reaching so many people. And I know that people listening to the podcast will also be reached through your, as we have a conversation.
Thank you.
So, Tovi, before we talk about your work, I'd like to begin with your story. I'm a true advocate of knowing people's stories. So, what experiences most shaped your identity and your understanding of who you are today?
Wow. I felt like I had like 3 or 4 really critical moments. I've had more than that, but just in terms of that really put me on the trajectory of what I do now and what I'm up to as an educational leader. First and foremost, I really have been just exploring the fact of how much fun I'm having in my work again, that it's making me remember that I really grew up as a free spirit. Like my mother really valued freedom and being a free spirit with not so much without boundaries, but just the boundlessness of being able to be who I am and the joy of that. And it shows up like, picking out your own clothes, what books you want to read, spending time at the park, doing free activities, sitting and daydreaming, coloring, like just all these things that just are not attached to anything more than whimsy
mm,
and what brings you joy. And so that sense of free spiritedness as a child and not really being um, locked into like religion and things that could potentially just really codify my conditioning
mm,
wasn't really there. And so I feel like that is something that has carried me to be creative and to be innovative.
mm,
My mother's death when I was in ninth grade was extremely
mm,
impactful on my life as an experience that helped to shape my identity and my understanding because the day my mother died, I went to school.
mm,
The day my mother died, I went to school. And when I look back on that from being an adult and being an educator, it really gave me a trauma informed and healing centered lens because it made me think about we don't know what our kids are coming to school with.
mm,
We don't know what they're carrying. And they may not tell us, but school is predictable, school is safe, school can be a place of normal for our kids. And those were the things that I was looking for on the day my mother died. And
mm,
I remember in hindsight, but I remember thinking, like my uncle was like, you can stay home today. And I thought, what am I going to do here at home without my mother?
mm,
Like this, that foreign nature of what to do with myself that day felt scarier than just in a sense kind of pushing through and going to school. Now that was a little bit of a double-edged sword because that's when I learned to push through,
mm,
right? And kind of check out on my feelings or numb my feelings or shove them down so that I could continue to do what I need, quote unquote, need to do. So there we start with that doing versus the being already,
mhm,
right? Instead of me being in deep grief, I was either too shocked or too afraid. Um, my mother and I also had a pact that I wasn't going to let her death break me.
mm,
And so, not even knowing what being broken could look like or what grief sometimes does to us to quote unquote break us, it's such a temporary breaking.
mm,
It doesn't even have to be permanent, but I didn't have the lived wisdom to know that. I didn't have the lived experience as a 14-year-old. So not breaking for me was I'm going to go to school. I'm going to, push through and go on. And that was a huge shaper, if you will, for who I would become and how I would also be as an educator. Um, And then I think something really impactful too was that I spent a lot of time in white schools, a lot of time in white schools,
mm,
and then spending a lot of time in non-white schools, particularly after my mother's death. And my mom was a Black woman, yet she felt like white schools were better schools.
mm,
And sadly, she wasn't wrong. And so, me having the dichotomy of spending time in white schools versus non white schools made me a more powerful educator in non-white schools because I saw and lived the difference of inequality
mm,
in what our students of color would receive. And I vowed that I would never have a school under my leadership that would denigrate students of color, that would be less than for students of color. Like I had a taste of enough of what quality white schools was that I could replicate it for students of color. And I could then bring in that sense of belonging because going to Black schools and more diverse schools, I felt what belonging felt like in education. So it was like marrying these experiences into I can create this experience for other kids. And the way to do that was truly the heart work of equity and inclusion. It was the heart work. It's where my whole framework around conscious, connected, and courageous came from. because educating all kids is a consciousness of love.
Mhm.
And love is for everyone. It doesn't matter the skin we're in. And then my mentor teacher, when I was a student teacher, was a white woman.
Mhm.
And so she further proved the point. If you just love them and teach them in excellence, you've got the combination. She didn't pity the kids, she didn't make excuses for them. She was about excellence and love, period.
So I want to pull a couple things out that you've said because taking us even through the beginning as your mother was raising you, there's a couple things you said that I'm hoping listeners got this that base, yes, you lost your mother at a young age, but that base, and as we continue with your story, has so been with you. Let me pull a couple things out. Free spirit, fun in your work, boundlessness of being who you are, and play. I really want to pull that out. And then your experiences, but play, and I can hear it in your voice, I can hear it in your stories, is extremely critical. So, what I want to say is from the beginning of being raised and all that was instilled in you came out. And that's what this podcast is about, is moving forward. You had to move forward at certain periods of your life, and yet that was laid for you, and you held on to that and kept going. And that goes to my next question. So, but in your career, you've devoted so much of your career to helping people look beyond titles and accomplishments. Thank you for that. But if we stripped away every role that you've ever held, principal, coach, facilitator, consultant, leader, who is Tovi?
Ah, I think that's how I got the moniker goddess at work. Like, I feel like our work can be a sacred calling when we're in our right vocation, when we're in the right work. And so disconnecting from that, but still doing the work I love. And when I say disconnecting, because right in our work, we have these titles, but that disconnecting, I still feel like I'm a magical being
Hmm.
who loves connecting with my higher self, who loves being in nature. Um, at my core, I am deeply creative. I'm super whimsical and I am a free spirit. I am free. And I love enjoying my work. And when I'm no longer enjoying it, I know that somehow I'm out of alignment. And this whole do be paradigm helped me see that when I'm really being my work, it is a joy, whether it's exhausting, whether it's taxing, whether it's all these things that are sometimes the hard road of who we are as educators and leaders. When I'm getting taxed and unhappy and irritable, where am I out of alignment? And sometimes I'm out of alignment with my own self care. Sometimes I'm out of alignment with my integrity. Sometimes I'm out of alignment because I said yes to the contract because I needed the money
Hmm.
instead of this is a contract that will make me happy and it's work I love to do. And so at the age I am now in my fifth decade, I am so discerning about what I'm even saying yes to.
Hmm.
Like all money ain't good money. All jobs ain't good jobs. Like, and I know there's some privilege to even be able to say that, but you know what? I've paid my dues. I've paid my dues. So I'm going to relish in the privilege of being able to say that and say no when I can say no.
I appreciate you saying connecting with your higher self. And that's, helped me think also.
Mhm.
And I hope the listeners are hearing that. And your work is grounded in the area or the idea of moving from leadership doing. So let me pull that word out, doing, to leadership being. So do, D-O, to be, B-E. Was
Mhm.
there a moment in your life when you realized that what you were doing was less important than who you were becoming?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The doing is really around a technical mindset, meaning it's habitual. It's free of any kind of thinking. You're on override all the time. You're on habituated doingness. So that doing is about being on autopilot.
Mm,
And what I think happens to us as leaders, that we when we start to get disconnected and discouraged and fatigued, is that we go into autopilot and we just become leadership doing. Like, I'm just going to do this again. This is how we do it. This is how we always do it. Like, we stop questioning the system. We stop questioning our place in it. We stop questioning, is this best for kids? We stop questioning, is this healthy? So that aspect of the doing started to become less important because it was killing my soul.
mm,
And so the beingness again is around that consciousness of love, that consciousness of, this is a sacred calling for me to be an educator. How am I being connected to those that I serve and those that I work with? And then do I have the courage to walk that out? So the consciousness and the connection and the beingness, now my doing makes sense. Now my doing is thoughtful. Now my doing is intentional. It's mindful. So it's not even like people will think, oh, so just stop doing. No, what are we doing?
mhm,
Like, what are we doing? Like, even that question when when someone goes, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing?
mhm. True.
So, yes. Yeah.
So, Tovi, I know we talk about you're talking about education and kids and then I'm also thinking of as a parent, as
Mhm.
a business leader, or even just in general, your day-to-day movement and what you're doing, are you being? So that's really helping my brain go into that. Am I doing or am I being? So you often do though talk about belonging.
Mhm.
So, when in your own life have you experienced the deepest sense of belonging,
Mhm.
and how has that shaped your work?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, Interestingly, my one of the times I really remember at a young age, my deepest sense of belonging was in high school.
Mm,
And it was after my mother's death, when I had to go to Inglewood High School, which was an all black, very suburban school. I'll say mostly black. It was very black and brown. Um, and of course, most of the teaching staff was white. And I also had a lot of great black teachers there. And that was really a unique experience for me. And that's where I really saw that white teachers can love who they teach when they trust their hearts and consciousness to shift. Because for that to be a majority black school where the black students felt belonging and had success and were college going as the norm, it wasn't only because of the black teachers, right? It wasn't only because of our black principal. It took everybody. And I had a lot of powerful white teachers, and I felt a sense of belonging at the school. Like, one, I wasn't amongst a bunch of white children any longer. Like, that to me was a greater sense of
mhm,
non-belonging than it was about the adults. And so if I racialize it, that sense of belonging, that I just really felt at home, because I was also with so many kids that I had a shared lived experience with who understood me. Um, and the other, believe it or not, was on silent retreat,
mhm,
there with 200 people not talking for a week. Yet the silence and being seen, being held in silence, but being connected, all because we shared a unified goal of going deeper within and holding and championing each other through this shared container where you can't even verbalize or communicate with folks. Yet there's this beautiful gentleness, and there's subtle eye contact, and there's slow movement, and there's eating together, 200 people eating in silence. everyone moving to the bell at the same time, people just sitting and honoring their spirit within at the same time. I mean, ugh, that was just remarkable to me that it could even be done. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely a beautiful shared experience. I am Facebook friends with some people that I had my first silent retreat experience with in 2008. And we barely talk on Facebook, but it's like there's just a connection.
Yeah.
There's just this beautiful connection of an experience that we shared. And that is absolutely it. I have a scarf that a woman gave me because she just said, I loved watching you all week.
Yeah.
Like that was it. And she gave me a scarf, and I have that scarf to this day.
So, yeah, I want to go back to even the high school days and being different ethnicities there. And I
Mhm.
want to relate that also to the outside to people, listeners hear this, making that connection, seeing people, knowing people, and the silence. Let me go into the silent retreat too. And it goes to getting to know each other.
Mhm.
But I want to ask you this though. There are many people that are uncomfortable sitting still with themselves.
Yes.
Why do you think that is, and what might we discover if we did?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a biggie. And a lot of people are. Um, honestly, for my experience, and I think this is true for many people, and it's probably not true for everyone. So I don't want it to come across as it's being true for everyone, but it's my experience and what I have also shared with folks. There's a discomfort in facing your own truth of
Mm,
what is not attractive about you, what is not acceptable about you, the parts of you that you've tried to hide, run from, not look at, the parts of your backstory that you've tried to make real or true that isn't real or true, the people that you haven't forgiven
mm,
that come up when you get still, the hurts that have happened in your life, the brokenheartedness, the ugly things that you have maybe done out of your from your own behavior. So this sitting still, so much starts to bubble up because now you're still. And the stuff that's been trying to bubble up, that's like, if your listeners could see me, it's like that crawling out of yourself, that like the ugly stuff that's like, let me out of here because I really am a beautiful vessel of human. The toxic stuff that wants to get out. But we stay so busy. We stay on the move. We stay so overstimulated that it doesn't get out. It just gets deeper.
mm.
But I'm telling you, it's waiting to get out. It's waiting for that silence and stillness. And Linda, the other part too is that there's some beautiful things that want to come out. There's beauty in there that we forget to recognize in ourselves,
Mm.
that we override and don't honor in ourselves anymore. The good traits, the sacredness of our mission and purpose, the reason we love who we love, right? The special memories and special times. There's so much that we lose disconnection with because we just keep it moving.
Mm.
And it's time to not just keep it moving. It's time to get still.
So I want to pull out the part you just said about keep it moving, because this podcast is moving forward.
Yeah.
However, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, moving forward, you can't move forward until you deal with the backstory. Or I don't know.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
And moving
Okay.
forward is not the same as keeping it moving.
True. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and so you often do say that self-transformation is the pathway to systemic transformation. Why do you believe meaningful change begins with us?
Because we are the system.
Mhm.
We are the system. Like, it just amazes me that people keep pointing fingers and saying them, them, them. It's us. And the system will not change until we do. And that was a huge epiphany for me When I became a high school principal, when I started my private school, I did all these things. It was like, if I want to see a different system, I have to create new systems.
Mm,
But I can't create new systems from the same consciousness that created the system. So
mm,
that's why, again, when I go back to consciousness as the foundational tool, our consciousness has to shift.
mhm,
We have to align to love. We have to align to courage. Our consciousness and our thoughts that we think have to change first because that's where the behaviors change from. That's where the language changes from.
mm,
That's where co creation emerges from the thought.
mhm,
And it's metaphysical in so many ways, but people have to acknowledge that leadership is also a metaphysical practice
mm.
because we are literally pulling people into our leadership and thought process about things. So, what are we thinking? What system are we creating and generating? For me to create a new system for students to be successful, I had to have new thinking around it. And I had to translate that thinking for teachers to get behind, right? I had to express the thinking.
Yeah, and so you've done so much work and continue to do so much work through your work with racial healing, equity, inclusion. But what have you learned about our shared humanity?
Mm. That we all have toxic conditioning that contributes to what we're healing from. We've all contributed to the toxicity in some way. And so we have to acknowledge that. And I've learned that we really, at the core, we all want love. We all want love. I believe if I can say the man whose name starts with a big old T, like mine, he wants love. He wants love and adoration. And he's literally the stomping little kid who was like, by any means necessary, I'm going to get you to look at me, see me, and hopefully you'll really love me.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to have to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But that's an acting out. It's an acting out of wanting to be accepted and loved.
So I think of the word compassion when you say that, and
Mhm.
many other words. So what role does compassion play in the healing of the divisions that we see in our communities, our organizations, and in our society?
Mhm. Compassion is closely linked to the heart energy, right? To this heart energy of holding space. And when I think about compassion, also, I think about how are we holding non-judgment.
Mm,
And when I think about non-judgment, in the sense of not criticizing, not being critical, not making someone wrong.
mm,
And that to me is the role that compassion plays in healing the division. Our communities are divided. Society is divided because we've judged and made other things wrong, this sense of othering. Whereas just let it be how they want it for themselves. I want it how I want it for myself. And if I can just be me and want it for how I want it for myself, and you let me be about me with that,
mm,
then that's compassionate and it would be free. And I could do that for you. And so that is where compassion to me plays a role. I can love you and not love what you do, but I can love you. And guess what? I can love you and not love what you do. So I have the choice. I don't want to be around you. And I'm going to let you do what you're doing over there.
mhm,
But I'm not going to make what you're doing wrong over there.
mm,
I got enough to worry about over here.
mhm. Yeah. Well, and you said, holding non-judgment and not being critical. I mean, that's how you can move forward, manifest. Well, let me ask you that question that I have is that so you have described racism and other forms of oppression as manifestations of disconnection. But what does reconnection look like?
Woo, that's a beautiful, beautiful question. And reconnection, or excuse me, yeah, reconnection. I'm not even going to say reconnection. I'll just go with connection,
Okay.
right? This connection piece is really about how do we connect to self first, which is really the core of what happened to me in my first silent retreat. I was already a meditator, but what I learned on my first silent retreat were the ways that I, as a Black woman, was biased against some of my students that didn't look like me,
Mm,
and even biased against some of the students that did look like me. And it's a huge part of my story in that I had to connect to myself in order to even see the ways that I was disconnected from the students I wanted to love and how I thought I was loving them. And then I realized, oh my gosh, Tovi, you're holding a stereotype about Asian students being smarter than everyone else. So I'm literally not helping the Asian students as much, Linda, not
mm,
like mistreating them intentionally, not doing anything to them that's cruel. But I'm thinking, they don't need so much of my help. They're going to be just fine
mm,
because they're naturally smart. But that is in and of itself a disservice,
sure.
right? And then I'm holding this power of bias against Black students that, oh my gosh, who these Black kids,
Mm,
they gonna need more help. They like this. Da, da, da. That was just me drinking the Kool-Aid, because here I was, went to school with Black students. We didn't necessarily need more help. We weren't more difficult than anybody else. It's just a matter of the lens and consciousness of that lens. And so I love the definition that Brene Brown offers about connection. And she says that connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued,
mm,
when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from their relationship.
mm,
So, energy and this felt sense of connection is a feeling tone. Kids tap into it. That's why kids can just say to you when you're the principal, Miss Scruggs, she don't like me. And I can't even be like, well, what makes you say that? Because the kid feels it. The kid feels it.
yeah. What Brittany Brown said, but I know you, it's your thought process too, is,
Mhm.
and I want to use the energy too, because we have our energy. Our energy is put out there.
Yeah.
And how are people seeing or feeling with your energy? I think that's very critical for every one of us to understand what is our energy that we're giving out.
Yeah.
And Toby, you've worked with leaders from all around the world. What qualities do you see in people who create cultures where others feel seen, valued, safe to be themselves?
I want to tap in quickly too to the energy piece just for a moment,
Sure.
because when I talk about the being and beingness, it's about energy and consciousness. So when we talk, and when that being kicks in with the shift of consciousness and a greater heart sense and a greater compassion and less judgment, that's when the doing shifts.
Mm,
That's when the doing of how we're walking out our being really truly shifts. So I just really wanted to highlight that for the folks listening in, and really take this moment. So when working with leaders worldwide and the qualities that I'm seeing that are creating these cultures of belonging, three things are happening, maybe four. The first is they're self-empowered. They love themselves enough, they're connected to themselves enough that they don't have the desire to overpower someone else,
mm,
to have what Brene would call power over. There's this sense of power with, because they're self-empowered, that the connection to self allows for a deep connection to others. It doesn't compete. The other is that they are often less judgmental, like going back to that piece again, that self empowerment allows for being less judgmental because you're not even judging you. Like you're not in a space of being judgmental where you want to put others down because you don't even really put yourself down. You treat yourself compassionately. These folks that create cultures where others people feel belonging have deep courage, Linda, because it takes deep courage to form environments of belonging because you're going against the norm. And finally, by going against the norm, people that create spaces of belonging are comfortable standing apart.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
are comfortable standing apart.
I'm going to pull out the word courage that you just said too.
Mhm.
And in healing, what role does courage play in healing, whether it's
Mm.
personal healing, relational healing, or societal healing?
It's everything. It's absolutely everything because courage is the doing word. Courage
Mm.
is like you can be courageous,
Mm.
but all this being has to come out into right courageous action. And so it has everything to do with it. And courage by definition, I shouldn't even say that. Courage requires vulnerability. And vulnerability by definition has three parts: uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So, can you be courageous enough to be vulnerable in those ways so that you can engage with yourself at a personal level, like at a meditation retreat? Can you be courageous enough to relate to someone else who may not relate back to you in the same way? Can you be courageous enough to put everything you have on the line to create a new system, one that's rooted in belonging? And the big question that I had to ask myself, that I still do sometimes, do I feel safe enough?
Mm.
Right? There's a sense of emotional safety that we have to be courageous. But in that emotional safety is no guarantee. There's no guarantee.
Sure. I am thinking of people right now that are at crossroads, and there's many. The crossroads that they're at could be retirement, it could be career transitions, loss, caregiving or other life changes. But again, what wisdom would you offer someone that's navigating this uncertainty?
I've had to walk this walk kind of
Yes.
recent.
Oh.
The work is never ending of our the self mastery journey. And so I'd really name that the wisdom I would offer someone who's navigating a crossroads, navigating uncertainty, is first and foremost to really just trust yourself, whether you're relearning to trust yourself again or you're anchoring to trusting yourself. Trust your own wisdom, trust your knowingness. That's what trust yourself for me means. That
Mm.
I'm going to trust what I know about me and to be true for me. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go slow. Our culture and society is like push, push, move
Mm.
through this, push past it, go fast, just get through it, go fast, hurry. And it's like, you know what? Give yourself the space and grace to go slow. Damn it, the time I need is the time I need. Take the time that you need. And then finally, anchor what is true for you and what brings you joy, because that will not mislead you. That will not mislead you. And it took me about 2 years to re anchor to what is true for me and to my own joy. And I am in this rebirth that literally I am excited every day. Does it make things easy? Not always. Does it make it easier? Absolutely. Because I have re-fallen in love with my work again.
Mm.
I've re-fallen in love with my calling again. And on top of all of that, Linda, I have re-fallen in love with myself and my leadership. And it makes it all worth it because the work is still this challenging work of creating cultures of belonging when we have an entire society and government that says, no, you can't, but we're doing it anyway.
So you had said back in the beginning here, you're in your fifth decade of life, and yet we have those entering their second, third. So as you look at this generation, next generation, what gives you hope when you look at them, the generation of leaders, educators, and change makers?
I am so excited. I'm excited about their fearlessness.
Mm.
I'm excited about their boldness and how open and free thinking they are. Like they're rebuking the system. And I'll say it makes it hard on us sometimes to be their managers, their supervisors. But you know what? I will not put out their fire. And I will not co-sign on other people putting out their fire. The people in our age bracket, we started this and started paving the way. We have been praying for the warriors like them to come behind us, to finish the job, to see it through. So I'm holding space for them. When I think about, I go back to the George Floyd, and I remember being in Oakland, and my house was only a mile away from Lake Merritt, where the marching was happening and other marches and things were happening. And that I was holding space. I was outside saging. I was in prayer. I was in meditation while I could hear them marching. I could hear the sirens. I could hear the chants. I could hear the stomping. I could hear it all. And I had to get true for me. It wasn't true for me to go out and be out there, but it was true for me to hold sacred space for them
Mm.
and to know that I was part of that and fueling their courage on an energetic level, putting bubbles of safety around them. Again, I'm like in my backyard and I'm like saging the environment of like the universe and I'm cheering them on and I'm just like feeling that. So I have hope when I look at this next generation of leaders in education and beyond education because they have a fearless presence about them that could be intimidating if we didn't honor it. And I'm choosing to not be intimidated by it. I'm choosing to honor it. I'm choosing to root them on because we need them to carry through on what we've started.
I'm hoping the listeners hear what I'm hearing too, and that your mission really is rooted in possibility, transformation. I'll pull out the word you said, paving their way, holding space for them. But for you, what possibilities become available when we stop asking, because you didn't do this either, when the whole George Floyd was happening, what should I do? So what possibilities become available when you stop asking, what should I do? And you start asking, who am I being?
Whew. That beingness again leads to what should I do? And when we think about the possibilities, when we start asking, who am I being? Think about how you want to be experienced. That's really at the root of the question. How do I want people to experience my felt presence? How do I want people to experience my leadership? If I want them to experience me with more love and more courage, then what am I doing that creates that experience? What energy am I carrying that leaves people feeling that way after being with me? So that is really it because that's what leads to what do I then do? How do I want people to experience my beingness? So, what are those qualities that you gravitate towards? And it's bigger than your personality. It's literally, what am I cultivating within myself as a way of being? And that is trainable, Linda. People don't understand that. That's trainable.
Mm.
It starts with creating an intention for yourself. And then how do I align with that intention and what behaviors are rooted in that intention? And then we come back to self trust.
Mm.
Trust that my higher wisdom will show me.
Hearing your journey, which I could talk forever on this, but looking back though on your own journey, what are you still learning about yourself?
Hmm. I'm still on this journey of self mastery. And what I've been learning a lot in my own rebirth are the ways that I self abandoned, the ways that I checked out on my
Mm,
own self, where I lost my joy,
mm,
where I didn't allow myself to grieve and buried the grief, and ways that I just didn't feel safe in my own body and safe in some of my environments that I'd chosen for myself. I didn't feel safe in some of the relationships that I had chosen for myself or was even born into. And it came a time when I didn't want to self abandon anymore because I value my freedom and my self love and my joy too much. So I'm learning how to be better boundaried. I'm learning how to honor what's true for me and let what's true for you be okay. And I'm learning that an adage that I stand by is you can't teach what you do not embody.
mm,
And so I'm learning that I am an early adapter, that I'm often on the leading edge as a visionary. And I used to feel sad about that. I used to beat myself up about that. But I have the honor of being on the leading edge because I can teach from authenticity. I can teach from my own journey and my own path. And that for me is the most authentic teaching on the path of self mastery that we can do because we can't teach self mastery from a book. We
mm,
can't teach self mastery from advice. Like, this is hard earned wisdom that I'm able to pass on. But when you pass on wisdom and the person's really ready to step into their own beingness, then they can step into a path that has fewer landmines, a path that is chartered, if you will, for them to still have it be their own path, but to be able to see the road signs a little bit better,
mm,
to be able to have a guide that they can trust so that they know that they can actually rest and close their eyes on the path.
mm,
They don't have to be in a hyper vigilant state of alertness because they're charting the course themselves. And that they can have a guide that is hand in hand. And I've been blessed to have a spiritual teacher that has supported me in knowing what it's like to guide others,
mm,
where I can go back to your question of, so what am I still learning about myself? I can trust myself to lead the way. I
mm,
can trust myself and what I know and what I've been through, and know that transformation is real. And that because we can't always quantify it or have a researcher say something about it first, chick, if you go and research it, you're gonna have to study me. So
True. So true.
so
Yeah.
that's where we are. That's where we are. And so I'm still learning about this journey of transformation. And I do know that meditation, silence, and stillness is a key way on the path. And I'm here for it and I'm in love with it. And I'm excited about the leaders that are saying yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Two things I want to pull out. One is definitely the authenticity because I'm just a true believer in that. Be you, because also it goes into what you were saying about the book. You have that guide. There's not a book. It's your story. It's hand in hand with what you're doing and what you've learned through your journey. And so on that note, there's three qualities that you often speak about. One is being conscious, one is connected, and then courageous. Which has been the most challenging for you personally, and what has that journey taught you?
I'm smiling right now because when I thought about my journey, my path, and I think about conscious, connected, and courageous, It's the messy middle. We're
Mm,
back to literally the messy middle. So it's connected.
mm.
Connected has caused me to be the most vulnerable, the absolute most vulnerable, which has, again, has been the scariest at times, the most risky, the most uncertain, the most emotional. And it has taught me to trust it, because that messy middle is also the glue. It's the glue of the liminal space, right? If the liminal invites us into a new beginning from an ending, the liminal's in the middle. The liminal is the uncertainty. The liminal is when the feather is in the air and we know it's going to get to the ground, but how many twists and turns and flights will it take before it lands? So that connection, the connected piece, that is what I've learned the most. The most challenging has been connected. And it has been connected to self and then connected to others. That has been, yeah, it has stretched me, but it's been so worth it. So worth it.
So I have one more question, and because I definitely do not want this interview to end or this conversation, but my final question is, and we have people listening, and so if someone that's listening today is struggling to remember who they are beneath their titles, their responsibilities, their expectations, what would you want them to know?
Honor the sacredness beneath your title. Honor the sacredness beneath your calling, beneath your behaviors. What can you remember about who you've come here to be? Who you've come here to be. The title is just the sanctioned permission to do what you've come here to be. So with or without the title, would you be it anyway? So be free of judgment, be free of performativity, go within. Some of the hardest work you'll ever have is going within, but it's the most gratifying, and clarity emerges when we don't fight the struggle of who we really came here to be. The title is not all it's cracked up to be.
So as I said, I'm not excited that this conversation is ending, but it is. And so Tovi, I want to thank you for joining me and for sharing not only your wisdom, but also your heart. I truly appreciate that. Throughout our conversation, I was reminded that the most meaningful transformations, they rarely begin with changing what we do. They begin with changing how we see ourselves, how we
Yes.
connect with others, which you just talked about, and how we choose to show up in the world. Your reflections on identity, belonging, mindfulness, healing, and courage challenge us to slow down. And every listener, please hear that, and ask deeper questions, not simply about what we hope to accomplish, but about who we are becoming. And I want to pull the slow down also because we're living in a very fast-paced world. I appreciate you saying that. I was especially struck by the idea that healing is not a destination. It's an ongoing practice of reconnecting, connecting to ourselves, to one another, and to our shared humanity. At a time when so many people are navigating uncertainty, transition, division, your message offers something both powerful and hopeful. What it is that meaningful change begins within, that belonging can be intentional, intentionally cultivated, and that possibility often emerges when we have the courage to look inward before looking outward. Perhaps the greatest reminder from our conversation is that beneath every title, role, and accomplishment is a human being seeking connection, purpose, and meaning. And what we learn to honor, and when we learn to honor that truth in ourselves, we're better able to honor it in others. To our listeners, thank you for joining. And I would encourage people to look up Tovi C. Scruggs, and I'll have that. It's also in the show notes for people where to access Tovi. And until next time, please keep learning, keep growing, and keep healing, and keep moving forward.